Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garrett Burdan. I'm with the Culinary Institute of Child Nutrition, and we will give participants just another minute to make sure that they get joined here with us before we get started. All right. Well, good afternoon. I'm Garrett Burdan with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome you to the May 2023 CICN webinar, Menu Trends for School Nutrition Programs. As a reminder, during today's webinar, all attendees are muted. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the question box on your screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but due to our time constraints, every question may not get answered during the webinar. After the webinar ends, a link to complete a short survey will appear. Please complete the evaluation survey. 24 hours after the webinar, individuals who have registered will receive a follow-up email. The email contains a recording link to this webinar available on iLearn, ICN's online learning platform, and a link to the evaluation survey in case you missed the pop-up link. ICN will send out webinar certificates within 24 hours. The ICN and USDA Food and Nutrition Service launched the Culinary Institute of Child Nutrition in 2018 to assist in meeting the unique training, technical assistance, and professional development needs of child nutrition professionals. We work to help child nutrition professionals develop goals and implement best practices to improve the culinary aspect of program operations. Please visit the Culinary Institute of Child Nutrition online for tips and strategies for preparing and serving healthy, culinary-inspired meals. Thank you again for joining today's webinar. The topics covered in today's webinar fall under the key areas 1, 2, and 4. That's nutrition, operations, and communications and marketing. And meet USDA Professional Standards Codes 1100, 2100, and 4100. The learning objectives for today's webinar are: identify ways to monitor emerging food trends locally and nationally, learn the steps to adapt menu trends to work on school nutrition program menus, and recall 2 current school nutrition program menu trends. What's hot on school nutrition menus? Do you know what your customers crave? That's why you're with us today. In today's webinar, we will learn how some restaurant dishes become ubiquitous food trends and eventually land on school menus. Our expert guest presenters will have their fingers on the pulse of school menu trends, and they will share their take on how to monitor menu trends, how to adapt trends for school nutrition, and what is trending on social media for school nutrition. Our first presenter is Jeannie Riley. Jeannie Riley is a registered nutrition and dietetic technician and school nutrition specialist. She is an award-winning school nutrition director in Windham and Raymond, Maine. She is very involved in mentoring school nutrition directors and promoting school nutrition programs within her state and across the country. Jeannie is a co-administrator for 2 busy Facebook groups, Tips for School Meals That Rock and Tips to Succeed, School Meals in Small Rural Districts. Prior to working in school nutrition, Jeannie spent time working in hospitals, long-term care facilities, and for the Women, Infants, and Children program. As a nutrition and dietetic technician, Jeannie found all of these positions interesting and rewarding. School nutrition, however, is where she truly found a fulfilling lifelong career. Jeannie is a member of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and is the past policy and advocacy leader for the School Nutrition Services Dietetic Practice Group. She is also a member of the School Nutrition Association, and she represents the Northeast region on the School Nutrition Association's Public Policy and Legislation Committee. Our second guest presenter for today is Chef Rachel Petralia. Rachel Petralia is a culinary specialist for the Georgia Department of Education, working to build culinary-driven school nutrition programs across the state of Georgia. Prior to this new position, Rachel spent almost 14 years working for Gwinnett County Public Schools as district chef and culinary coordinator, creating recipes and menus for the district's 182,000 students, in addition to overseeing the safety, packaging, chemicals, small wares, and other various bids and contracts. Rachel earned her bachelor's degree in culinary arts from Johnson & Wales in Miami, Florida. Her passion for cooking has led to many career highlights, including traveling to South Africa, cooking at the James Beard House, being featured on the Today Show, and writing a cookbook. Rachel is a proud member of the CIA's Healthy Kids Collaborative and serves on the advisory board of Healthy School Recipes. We're so happy to have our guests with us today. Now, we have a lot to cover in today's webinar, so I'm going to jump right into the content. Before we begin exploring trends for K-12, it's important to understand a little bit about our customers. School nutrition or school meal programs currently serve two generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Your high school students are part of Gen Z, and research tells us that they are culturally and ethnically diverse, and they primarily use social media to learn about new products. Gen Alpha, on the other hand, are your current elementary and middle school students. These are children of millennials, so their parents, the millennials, are interested in simple food and sustainable ingredients, which influences Gen Alpha's food preferences. Gen Alpha has a lot of exposure to ethnic foods and flavors. So like Gen Z, Gen Alpha is also a very tech-savvy generation. The best explanation I have ever seen on how food trends begin comes from a market research company called Data Essential, and I have their permission to share this with you. It's just such a, their menu adoption cycle is what they call it, shows us where trends begin and how they move through the different food service segments. So I'm excited to introduce this concept to you. So the 4 stages of Data Essential's menu adoption cycle are inception, adoption, proliferation, and ubiquity. In the next few slides, I'll show you what each of these stages mean. And along the way, I want you to think about the Thai-inspired Vietnamese-American chili condiment, sriracha. I think you're probably familiar with sriracha. Sriracha is one of the fastest growing flavors over the past decade. And we need to think about the first time you heard about and tasted sriracha. Now think about where you have seen sriracha on menus outside of the home. Do you have a bottle of sriracha in your refrigerator? And does your school menu feature sriracha in a recipe or as a condiment? So I want you to think about these things. So let's start first with inception. Inception is where a food trend originates. A menu item or flavor pairing or an ingredient is used in fine dining or independent ethnic restaurants, which excites food critics and customers. The food trend eventually spreads to the adoption stage, when fast casual restaurants or casual independent restaurants begin to feature the trend on their menus. The third step is proliferation, when the food trend is found on menus in casual chain restaurants, quick serve restaurants, and colleges and universities. And then the eventual final step is called ubiquity. And that's when the food trend is seen everywhere, even on menus in family restaurants, K-12 food service, and hospital cafeterias, for example. So let's take a look at this in another way. Here's an infographic from Data Essential that provides a good visual of how a trend moves from inception at the top through adoption, then proliferation, and eventually into ubiquity. So you can see at the top there's inception with ethnic independence and fine dining, where a trend will begin, and then it'll move eventually through to the adoption phase with chef casual restaurants or food trucks or casual independent restaurants, then into proliferation, where we see it a lot more in lodging, casual chains, colleges and universities, and then finally into that phase they call ubiquity. One moment, please. And finally to the phase they call ubiquity, which includes family restaurants, healthcare, and K-12, which is where we are. Here's another infographic that shows current trends in global cuisine types. This was recently presented in December at the Culinary Institute of America's Healthy Kids Collaborative annual meeting. We see here that some of the current trends in inception are Brazilian and Peruvian foods. Then in the adoption phase, we can see Caribbean, Indian, and Korean cuisines, which have been in the inception phase a few years back. The proliferation phase features regional Mexican and Cuban cuisine. And then finally, in ubiquity, we see a general Mexican cuisine category along with Chinese and Italian. What we can learn from this graphic is over the next few years, you may see cuisines from the proliferation, adoption, and inception phases represented on your school menu or maybe neighboring school menus. In fact, some school menus already feature dishes from some of these food cultures. Thinking back to our customer demographics, we see here that our high school students, Gen Z, are regularly eating globally influenced foods. We can also see that millennial parents of our elementary students, and likely the students themselves, are also regularly eating globally inspired foods. So understanding this preference trend toward global flavors can inform what you choose to serve on your menus. Now that you know a bit more about food trends, let's learn about how you can track and adapt menu trends for school menus. I would like to invite our first guest presenter, Jeannie Riley, to share her take on K-12 food trends. Welcome, Jeannie.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much. I'm going to just share my screen and get to a place where you can see my slides. Now we have a lot of ground to cover. And so I'm just going to slide right through here and talk you very briefly just about myself. As Garrett already shared with you, I am a school nutrition director from the state of Maine. And just so you have a concept of what my district is like, we are a small district by national standards. We have about 3,300 students and 6 schools. However, by Maine standards, that's a fairly large district. We are the 6th largest district in the state of Maine. And also, so you know, Maine is one of the few states across the country that is offering universal school meals for all students at no cost. So that has changed things a lot for us as far as participation. Our participation is about 50% higher than it was during pre-pandemic times. I'm also a co-administrator of the 2 very busy Facebook groups, Tips for School Meals That Rock and Tips to Succeed School Meals in Small Rural Districts. So if my name is familiar, I'm the woman behind the screen. So first of all, you know, school nutrition programs don't necessarily compete with other school nutrition programs. So what is happening in my district, I can share with other districts in my neighborhood, in my community, and you know, the county next door. But what we do actually compete with are local restaurants, especially when it comes to our older and our Gen Z students. So to look for on-trend favorites at quick serve restaurants in your area, coffee shops such as Starbucks or Dunkin', Chick-fil-A, maybe even local bodegas or Panera, local places that are unique to your area. You want to be thinking, where are students eating when they're not eating at home? Another place to look for trends of what's trending in the food world, or what are the food trends that are kid-friendly, is to look in food service and trade publications. One great place to start is the School Nutrition Association's magazine, School Nutrition Magazine, and Food Management or Food Service Director. You can even go online and just Google food trends for kids, and you can come up with a great list of maybe 10 or 12 things that are currently trending for students at different age grades. So, you know, whether it's Gen Alpha or Gen Z, you're going to be able to hone in on that by just Googling it or reading some articles in a trade publication. Another place to look for trends is on social media. School nutrition directors from across the country love to share their success stories and what's popular in their district. So you can look at groups such as Tips for School Meals That Rock or Tips to Succeed. You can also go to school nutrition professionals, but it's also great to network with your colleagues in your area at School Nutrition Association conferences or Department of Education or school nutrition meetings in your county, in your state. And also it's great to follow other districts on social media so that you can see what they're posting and see what's popular, what's trending, and what is hot right now in school nutrition. Now, this one was a real surprise for me. Some of the things are surprising what is trending, and thinking outside of the box for trend inspirations, we found that one of our biggest sellers currently came from inspiration from those meal prep delivery services like Blue Apron or HelloFresh, where families are getting food kits to prepare at home. Those are foods that students are already familiar with and may actually translate well into school nutrition programs. You can also look at the grab and go section of your local grocery store or local markets or bodegas to see what kids are grabbing, parents are purchasing at the store to pack in their students' lunch boxes. And always, always, always do your market research by asking your customers, what are they looking for? What is making them hungry? And then can you recreate that item in a school nutrition program? So here's, I just referenced our meal prep delivery service inspiration. This was a Korean barbecue bulgogi bowl. Our chef the chef in our district had actually gotten one of these meal prep delivery kits in his home. And as he was preparing it, he thought this would be something that would be really great in a school nutrition program. So we decided to go to work. He went to work with recipe development, utilizing some of our USDA pork. And the first place he did, once he got the recipe where he wanted it and it was tasting delicious, and using some gochujang sauce and some sriracha, we did a limited time offer at our high school during midterms when the kids have open campus and we have a lower amount of students eating lunch on any given day. So it was so successful at our during midterm week that we decided to move it down to our middle school level. We still had lots of USDA pork to use up. And so we did a sampling station in both our middle school cafeterias and allowed students to sample the bulgogi bowl while they were having lunch. And what was so amazing is that the students were already familiar with this bulgogi bowl concept because their parents were making it at home, because they were already getting these meal prep delivery kits in their home, like HelloFresh or Blue Apron or any number of meal prep delivery kits. So then once we had sampled it, the kids were begging for us to put it on the menu, and we featured it actually on our menu just several days later with marketing and signage and rollout on social media. Very, very popular. And now it's a regular item that occurs on our menu like in every six-week cycle. Another trend for charcuterie, grab and go lunches. The inspiration comes from social media groups, but also from your local market's grab and go section. You can see containers like this at in your, I see them in my grocery store in that front section where they're making meals to go, these little boxes with nuts and cheese and maybe some fruit or maybe some hummus and dip, and they're not cheap. So we decided we could do this in school nutrition. So the other inspiration, so local markets and on social media, and they're so kid friendly and a perfect grab and go. They were very, very useful during COVID-19 when we were doing lunches on curbsides and lunches in school and lunches pretty much every way you could go. So here are 3 pictures from across the country from Tori Pryor Gibson in South Carolina, and Melanie Gabriel I love her little cups she did for some younger students. And she is from Santa Rosa, California. And from my friend Jeannie Lapointe in RSU 10 in Maine, another charcuterie grab and go box, which are just in our own district, they just fly right off the shelves. So what are the steps to implement these charcuterie boxes or cups? Well, implementing these are really easy. You need to develop a recipe. Probably the most challenging part is finding that suitable serving container that allows for optimal visibility so it looks good and is attractive to students. And then marketing with graphics and photos to inform your customers that this is available, that they can select at lunch. So here is 2 samples of recipes or inspiration that are both came from Tips for School Meals That Rock. The infographic is just really breaking down what needs to go in a charcuterie box to make it a reimbursable meal. And that infographic is available on Tips for School Meals That Rock. And then the second graphic is a recipe for a charcuterie box from Lisa Kimber Hayes in Pickens County School District in South Carolina. And that is just a recipe of how to create it, how to make it reimbursable so that you're meeting all the guidelines. And again, both of these resources are available on Tips for School Meals That Rock, and we can provide them as well later after the webinar. Let's see if I can get to the next slide. So another trend is global cuisine and culturally appropriate foods. And Garrett talked about that earlier. It is so on trend, and it really focuses on meeting the needs and tastes of our customer base. This graphic represents a meal served in last week in Minneapolis public schools, a lunch featuring sambusas, a Somalian cuisine favorite, and recreated for the Minneapolis schools. The entire meal featured Somalian cuisine and Somalian cuisine favorites, honoring the tastes and culture of the large Somalian population in their community. So it makes students feel at home and welcomed. So how do you implement culturally appropriate meals? Recently in Portland, Maine and Westbrook, Maine, a consultant chef, many of you may be familiar with her, Samantha Gasparo, worked with a local African cuisine expert to develop standardized recipes and several culturally appropriate recipes. And then they trained the school nutrition team, hosted taste testings, and then implemented on the menu. Many of you may have team members who are also experts in a different cuisine. Be sure to capitalize that. And then once you have your recipes standardized, taste test it, have a try it Tuesday, put it on the menu, and then assess and gain acceptance. Plant-forward meals are another current trend that continues to be very popular throughout the culinary world. And here are 2 examples of craveable plant-forward meals in Stoughton City Schools in Virginia from Amanda Pack Warren. This Peruvian chili just checks that box that you heard Garrett talk about earlier. It's becoming more and more popular, Peruvian chili, and then these beautiful earth-layered cup salads that were a feature during Earth Day. So you're getting the idea now that the steps to implement are very consistent. Develop the recipe or find a recipe that's already developed for a school nutrition program. Ensure that the recipes meet school nutrition program guidelines for enough meat alternate, and make sure that any grains are whole grain rich. And then you need to make sure that the recipe is, compliant with sodium restrictions. Do taste testing, do marketing, and then implement the meal. Just a few more trends to go through, and then I'm going to pass it over to Rachel. But here's a trend that really checks all the boxes and is really creating meals that match or are very similar to what kids are eating in fast food restaurants or quick service restaurants in your area. We recently got our very first Chick-fil-A here in Southern Maine, and The kids are all about it. So we wanted to recreate some meals that are very similar so that they're more likely to come and eat a free school lunch with us than to head to Chick-fil-A. So we've done a Chick-fil-A inspired chicken and waffles, and then another Chipotle inspired burrito bowl that is a great way to utilize some of the USDA chicken strips or diced chicken that you might get. We can always find a recipe and then work to recreate it so that it is meeting all the school nutrition program guidelines. And of course, we're going to do it better. So recipe development, make sure that your recipe is creditable, meeting all the USDA guidelines, train your staff, make sure the meals are presented beautifully, and then do taste testing. And again, market. Those are the steps really to ensure success. You know, I think this is one last trend. Maybe as we emerged from COVID-19 pandemic, comfort food really popped as a food trend. During the times of upheaval, many people seek old familiar foods that are comforting. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, chicken pot pie, all are examples of comfort foods that make people feel at home and welcome and cared for. This meatloaf and mashed potatoes comes from Patrick Keneally from Hartford Central Schools in Hartford, New York. And this creamy chicken soup and whole grain biscuits is from my own district, RSU 14. Again, for implementing comfort foods, you want to look at regional favorites. So grits can be incredibly popular in the South, but in New England, our students don't even know what they are. So talk to your customers. What are they craving? What's familiar to them and tastes like home? We've been through some really uncertain times with COVID-19, and serving up comfort foods can feel like a big hug to our students. And chances are that there's already a school nutrition version of a recipe that's a comfort food. It may exist on USDA recipes or at the Institute of Child Nutrition or Healthy School Recipes, Chef and Foundation's Lunchbox, or search the files on Tips for School Meals That Rock, because it may save you some important steps. Then you just want to go for implementation and marketing. Now, here's an excellent example. We were successful when we menued just this week some school-made egg bites. Students were very familiar with the egg bites because they can see them at Starbucks or Dunkin'. However, on the flip side, we reached a little too far when we tried to serve some delicious and school appropriate shakshuka. The recipe had been created by our chef to meet the school nutrition guidelines, but for our customers, it was just a little too unfamiliar. So this is a case where we didn't do enough market research and we didn't do enough taste testing and marketing to ensure success of our shakshuka. Finally, if you are inspired by a food trend or something delicious that you have eaten at a restaurant that you think will be successful as a school meal, be sure to try it, because innovation leads to success. And as Walt Disney said, if you dream it, you can do it. So now I'm going to hand it over to Chef Rachel, and she's going to tell us about what's happening in Georgia.
Hi, I'm just going to pull my presentation up and share it with you. Can you see my presentation?
No, we can't yet, Rachel.
Okay. Can you now?
Not yet.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
So first you want to start the presentation, Rachel.
How about now?
You
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
Thanks,
I
Rachel.
apologize.
Oh, you're
Thank
good.
you so much. So as Garrett mentioned earlier, my name is Rachel Petralia, and I'm very excited to be here today to share with all of you. I am a culinary specialist for the Georgia Department of Education in obviously the state of Georgia. I am one of 3 culinary specialists, and we work together to collaborate and support all the districts within the state to really ensure culinary driven school meals. This gives you a snapshot of the state of Georgia, but the fact that I am most proud of is that based on participation, we are the 5th largest school nutrition program in the nation. So you can tell that our focus is really on engaging students in the community, consumption, making sure that students are eating, and the participation. So today's topic is really fitting because we're going to be talking about trends. And I want to make sure that you know just how important trends are and how you can take that data and really adapt it to the K-12 setting. And I have a bit of a formula that I use, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So when it comes to food trends, some things that I think are important to know is why look to food trends? Well, one of the biggest reasons is the fact that they alter the way the majority of our students eat. They also elevate your program, keep it relevant, keep it exciting. For me, as a chef in school nutrition, I find inspiration from looking at trends. I find that they keep me fresh and on my toes. They push me to elevate the recipes and the food that we're doing. So if you're not already looking to trends, you need to, you should, and I want you to know they're really important. These are a couple examples of some past food trends that I worked on to bring into the K-12 setting. And today I will go through exactly what this process looks like, the steps that I follow to take something that's out in the marketplace or something that's on social media and bring it into the school setting. So if you're looking at the slide, the first thing that you see is the biscuit. And this is a food trend that I really wanted to take a moment to just kind of consider because the idea behind this was really not food related. It was more on marketing, menu description, and the way something is placed on a menu in its words. So this could just be a biscuit with some yogurt and berry spread. And this is actually something that I worked with the state of Indiana and Kathy Powers to develop. But instead of it just being that simple biscuit, I really looked to the marketplace to see the way quick serve restaurants and fast casual restaurants are menuing items has really evolved and changed. The messaging is a trend, it's a current trend, and it's important. So this was named a Cinnamon Toast Crunch biscuit with a roasted berry yogurt schmear. And so by elevating those words and taking time to really think about how you market an item, you're hitting a trend. So that's a real easy, quick, and simple way to get started when it comes to trends. Now in the center, it's a parfait. You know, we're all serving parfaits at School Nutrition. It's a staple item. It's something your kitchens already know. They know how to execute. It's something you're more than likely already serving. But instead of topping it with granola, just did a twist on a biscuit, again with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar, baked it off, and then incorporated some Pocky sticks to just really finish that off. The Pocky sticks just visually, immediately give it a bit of a unique wow factor. And then also it hints towards that global influence that students are looking for. So again, this was just something that was easy to hop on a trend. It only took, Pocky sticks and slightly altering the bread grain that you're going to put on that parfait. And it was easy to hop on board and get that into the K-12 setting. The last photo is a salad. We all serve salads, but a lot of times we're serving more of a composed salad or a chef salad. Well, if your students are not eating with you or eating at home, they are hitting quick serve restaurants. They're hitting fast casual restaurants. When you look at those menus, you're not seeing composed salads and you're not seeing chef salads. You're seeing chopped salads where everything is tossed together. The other great thing about adapting to a chopped salad is the fact that when it comes to kitchen production, it's quick. It's not as tedious or fussy as putting together a composed salad. So switching to the chopped salads, again, was really quick and seamless. It made a lot of sense from a K-12 production standpoint. It also made a lot of sense because it was more on trend with what our students are seeing out in the marketplace. So now let's talk about how to figure out what trends make sense for your program. Look to the data, and it's everywhere. For me, I read magazines, I read cookbooks, there's Instagram accounts that I follow, chefs who are friends that I talk to, experts in the culinary industry. I love to look to pop culture, music, fashion, restaurants, food trucks. I really just grab little bits and pieces from anywhere and everywhere that I kind of find interesting. It does help if you have a passion for food and a passion for cooking, but there's so much information and trends happen so quickly and can change so fast that at times it can be a bit overwhelming and you can almost have overload with everything that is coming at you. So as you're looking at all this information and you're taking it in, you really need to take the time to think about what makes sense for your program. What are your goals? And a lot of times I'll write those down on a board. Are we trying to create an exciting and fun atmosphere? Are we trying to increase the visibility and consumption of fruits and vegetables? Do we want to increase global influence? Do we want to get the consumption of a particular meal service up, breakfast or lunch. That will start to narrow down that data that you're receiving. Those are some of the things that start to run through the back of my head. Then I'm also thinking, what makes sense to translate into the K-12 setting? Because not everything does. And if you're going to try to hop on to a trend, chances are your students have already seen it. They know what it looks like. They know what it tastes like. They have expectations. So you want to make sure that it's something that you can do well. So again, that's going to be a way to kind of narrow it down. Lastly, you want to think about, can I even procure these ingredients? Do I have the equipment to execute this trend? Does it make sense from a cost perspective? So have all of that in the back of your mind, and that's going to help you start to take all the information that's out there and figure out what works best for you. It should also fit your personality and your style. It should be something that when you see it pop up on social media, you know, it excites you. You feel a connection to it. The great thing is the fact that there are so many trends currently out there. I mean, you could Google right now, TikTok recipe cooking trends, and you're going to have a dozen at your fingertips. So don't feel like just because something is popular, you have to do that. Take the time to figure out exactly what makes sense for your program. Another consideration is going to be your team. Think about training. Think about the skill level in your kitchen. That doesn't mean that you can't do that trend, but that's going to be a consideration when it comes to timing. When trends are hitting the marketplace, there's some that are almost a flash in the pan. Think about the unicorn smoothie that was so popular just a couple of years ago. We had what, like a 48-hour window to turn that around and have it hit K-12. Well, most of us weren't going to do that. A lot of trends have long-lasting appeal. When Janine was talking about plant-based and global, that's been on the rise the last couple of years. It's still on the rise. If you need time to really train your team and make sure that things are perfect, flawless, you've had time to practice them, those are the trends you're going to want to connect with, not something that really is more of a fad than it is a trend. So here's some trends that I've been working on for 2023, 2024. They're current, they make sense for K-12, and each kind of hit a different characteristic of a trend. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So the trends behind the Indonesian fried rice is rice and bowls. Bowls remain king. They're not going anywhere. If anything, you're going to see more and more bowl concepts being rolled out. You know, Janine was just talking about grit bowls. You know, they're at breakfast, they're at lunch, they're portable. They're easy for your students to socialize and talk. It's that up food. Rice is also a staple item, and it is seeing a rise in its presence on menus. The second trend, and I love this flavor profile, is the sweet, sour, and spicy. I feel like heat has been popular for a while. I mean, we have hot versions of pretty much anything you can purchase. Sweet, we've had for a long time. We even combined the spicy and sweet together for hot honey and things like that. And those flavors are still popular and still trending in the marketplace. However, the introduction of sour is really exciting, especially in the K-12 segment. For one, the sweet sour spice is a more complex flavor. And I think that's something you should take note of, because that just shows you how savvy your students are with flavor and with food. But I also love the fact that sour helps us with sodium. You know, it gives you some of those notes that salt does in a way that students are looking for, because this flavor combination is trending. And then global influence. Students want to try either flavors that they're familiar with from their diverse background, or they want to experience flavors from an area that they haven't been to, but that they're interested in. So anything with a global influence is really popular right now. The idea behind the Indonesian fried rice was kind of twofold. One, savory at breakfast is on the rise. And I think in K-12, that makes a lot of sense, because we're all looking at the sugar in breakfast and the fact that, for one, savory is becoming more popular with our students at breakfast. And then the fact that fried rice has egg in it, you know, it just kind of naturally makes me think of breakfast, but you could also menu it at lunch. Also, the fried rice bowl is something that your kitchen teams are familiar with. They are putting rice bowls together. They know how to cook rice. These are ingredients that you more than likely have in your kitchens. It is important to take note of the fact that how it looks is really important to your students. They want to be able to take a photo. They want it to be photo worthy. They want it to be pretty. Texture is also really important to your students, which also made me think of an Indonesian fried rice bowl, because you have the base of the fried rice, but then you also have the crispy cold cucumbers and the tomato and the lime and the scallions. And so this is really something that is easily adaptable to the K-12 menus. It makes sense cost-wise. It incorporates fruits and vegetables, which we want students eating more of. And so I just really loved this. And this is an example of a trend that could easily be placed on your menu and in steady rotation. Now, the next trend item that I'm going to show you is not one that we would put on the menu on a regular basis, but I also want you to kind of think about where these trends fall into different categories. And some of them are going to be, you know, yeah, you could have a cool burger, or you could have a fried rice bowl that's in your menu cycle. Other things are going to be trends that are meant to serve the purpose of an LTO, they're a pop-up, they're a one-time occasional special item. This is the grapefruit brulee, and I absolutely love this. So, as Janine mentioned, with the comfort food, nostalgia is a trend that's on the rise. However, our students are not as interested in nostalgia. They have a term, nostalgia, and I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but essentially, you know, they're so opinionated and they have all their own ideas. They want to create their own definition of nostalgia and retro. And they also want something unique and unexpected. So the grapefruit always makes me think of a grapefruit on Christmas morning with the cherry in the middle, or the grapefruit that's been sprinkled with some granulated sugar. And so that's kind of the retro feel. However, by giving it a brulee twist, it creates that nostalgia. Also, this has a big wow factor. It's completely unexpected. Students are not expecting your kitchens to brulee anything. However, you have the ingredients. You need to get torches, but they're not expensive. And this creates a buzz. This also creates engagement with the customers. They'll ask, what is this? How can I get this? When is this being served? How is it being served? That's important. That creates loyalty between the customer and the operation. That helps drive participation. Now, this is something that takes a little bit more work to it, a little bit of practice from your kitchen team. However, anytime you're trying to change the perception of anything, you are going to need to put in a certain level of effort to elevate and to get you there. So you give out one wedge as a sample, or you have a half cup serving of grapefruit wedges with one that's bruleed on top. You do it once or twice a year, the impact that you'll get from this is pretty tremendous. Now, the gobbler. Take a note from quick serve, fast casual, local restaurants, things that are seasonal. Holiday meals, most all K-12 is going to serve some sort of holiday meal. However, a lot of times it is a bit reminiscent of a buffet restaurant or has that institutional feel or look to it. Create a unique handheld with the components that you would normally have in that holiday setting. So the gobbler is really just that. Students love handhelds. They love sandwiches. Your kitchens are familiar with building those and putting them together. This has the stuffing, gravy, cheese, turkey, all together, warm, hot, delicious, full of flavor inside the sandwich. The cranberry chutney is made with fresh cranberries, orange marmalade, brought to a boil, so it's easy to execute, and then fresh local green beans. Seasonal, fresh ingredients are important to your students. They care about wellness. They care about where their food is coming from. They are looking for those notes on your menu. This is also something they can only get in your schools. And they can only get it for a short amount of time. Again, this creates engagement, it drives participation, and it's just really a win and allows your kitchens to have a little bit of fun with something that they're normally serving in a different way. The last concept that I'm going to talk about is a recipe that was developed solely for the purpose to carry trends. Think to restaurants. They've done this for years. They have a latte that can become pumpkin spice in the fall. They have a milkshake that can be served with peaches in the summer. They have a burger that can be hit with jalapenos when spice is really popular, or bacon to go with the bacon craze. This is something that I've done in the K-12 segment for a long time now, because what it allows you to do is to take a base recipe, train your team on that base recipe. They know exactly how to execute it. They know exactly how long it takes. They know the texture. They know the flavor. They know how to hold it. They know exactly how to execute this base to perfection. Then it can carry any spice, any added ingredients. This allows you to easily and quickly jump onto trends as they're hitting the marketplace. So the cornbread drop biscuit was developed for this year just to do that. It could be served at breakfast and lunch. You could add in fruits and veggies. It can be made ahead. It's very versatile. We have control over the nutrition, which we love. And then also the perception and brand. Another area where you're seeing a giant trend is in the demand for scratch cooked recipes. And this is a simple one that does that. So since students are looking for seasonal, and since they're looking for local, and since farm to school is just as big as farm to fork and farm to table, this made a lot of sense because we're able to follow our seasonal calendar and incorporate in fresh fruits and vegetables. It also sends a message of elevation to the community and students that we know flavor, we know seasons, details are important. It creates an easy way for your menus to feel fresh and new, and your kitchens know exactly how to execute it, whether a spiced apple is being added or a blueberry or strawberry. This drop biscuit also allows trends to be served really quickly and really easily. You're probably all familiar with the Cheddar Bay biscuit. It's extremely popular on social media and has almost 90 million views on TikTok. Your students like this flavor. It's really simple, and we can take the cornbread drop biscuit, add some shredded cheddar cheese, granulated garlic, and cayenne pepper. It's the Cheddar Bay biscuit. It's extremely delicious. You can serve it at breakfast for savory. You can serve it at lunch. You could change the name of it and call it a fritter. The London Fog is up 271% on menus in the past 4 years. It's a drink at Starbucks. It's been adapted into a lot of desserts at very popular restaurants. While we're not going to serve it as a latte at lunch, the flavors inside the London Fog are vanilla, lavender, honey, and like a sour citrus. So again, with this drop biscuit, we can incorporate some vanilla, lavender, lime, lemon, and orange zest. And then we added some honey to it as well. And we're able to jump on that trend of the London Fog and put our own spin to it. And our kitchens can execute it really, really well. So in closing, I want to emphasize again, train your kitchen teams. Let them know that we want to be able to adapt to trends because that's how our students are eating. That keeps us relevant and exciting. And it's a really easy way to send the message that you care about details, that you are culinary focused, and that flavor is important. Train, technique, presentation, texture, flavors. But know that there's so many trends out there that there are plenty that make perfect sense for you and your program. Trends are important, and you should start tuning into them if you're not already. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chef Rachel, for sharing all of those examples. I mean, you've inspired, you can see the reactions, I think, on your screen, but you've inspired the attendees today in so many ways. Lots of thumbs up, hearts, and high fives. We appreciate that. And let me hold on a second. Let me close out of that. But thank you so much. That was awesome. You shared some really great ideas, and there's several questions that have come in. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we will do our best. So Jeannie, thanks again for joining us, and thank you for all of the content that you shared. I think between the two of you, you have given this the audience of this webinar some really important things to consider as they're thinking about how they're going to be developing menus, new recipes, and how they can incorporate trends, so that their school menus are relevant and current. And so anyway, let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to check off our list. There are so many requests for recipes of the examples that you gave. So Jeannie, I'll start with you. If you want to tell us where they can find some of the recipes that you shared, and then we'll move on to Rachel.
So a lot of the recipes that I shared, or perhaps all of the recipes that I shared, are available on Tips for School Meals That Rock. But I will go there and also reshare them so they're kind of at the top. I can also share them with Garrett, and then the Institute of Child Nutrition will have them as well.
Thank you so much. And Rachel, I'm not sure if any of the recipe examples that you shared are available through Georgia DOE publicly, but let us know what the options are yeah. Okay, so you could, if you want to, you could send some to me, and then we'll send them out to the attendees. That's the best. Okay, you don't have them published on the Department of Education website?
No, some of them are on the Healthy School Recipes website. Some of them will be coming to the Department of Education website, but I can share them with you for you to send out.
Awesome, thank you. I know because it's fresh in all of our minds, the cornbread drop biscuit does sound so versatile. And I love that you gave the example of taking one item and going in a lot of different directions. That is very good use of recipe development. Let's go to some questions here. Jeannie, let's see. I think you wanted to answer the question about the bulgogi bowl that is on Healthy School Recipes. Excuse me.
No, it's
Tips.
on Tips for School Meals That Rock in the files. And I'll do a repost this evening so it will show up as a more current post.
Awesome. We appreciate that. So here's a question. I'm loving the ideas and the pictures, really inspiring stuff. Lots of labor implications too. What are some of the meals per labor hour goals for the districts where these items are produced? Do you have any comments on that?
So I guess I should comment because Rachel's not actually at a school anymore, although you could probably comment on your previous position, Rachel. We're hitting about 15, anywhere from 15 to 22 meals per worker hour in our district. We've had to really scramble this year as our participation has grown so much. So we are really exceeding our meals per labor hour goals at this point.
That's great. And Rachel, I don't know, do you remember any of that data from when you were in Gwinnett? And yeah.
I mean, it's, it was similar, but I would also say that, a lot of it is going to be in your menu placement. And if you have an item that is going to take a bit more time or is more labor intensive or has, more steps to it, menu that with something that you can execute in your sleep and is very quick and seamless with the labor. And that's what typically we always did, and I find that to be very successful. And then there will be times when if you're going to brulee the grapefruit, you might give some ad time for that, or just allow for the fact that this is a special promotion and we're gonna dedicate a little bit more time to it.
I think you make a really good point there that in some of these cases, they're an LTO or a limited time offer. So it's going to be maybe a one-off that you are going to devote a few extra labor hours to do for the result of like wowing your customers, Rachel, as you shared with us. Like it's doing something completely unexpected where your customer walks up and they're like, oh my gosh, what is that? That looks amazing. And it's not necessarily a daily or a weekly thing. So it's great. It's great marketing.
But, you know, a lot of them also, it's going to be in the details. And when you are writing the recipes, you know, the cinnamon toast crunch biscuit, the biscuits are laid out with the cinnamon and sugar already on them and returned to the freezer the day before. So it's really being fired just like you would a biscuit the morning of breakfast. So some of it's that as well. You know, make the execution work for your program.
Absolutely. Another question that came through that I think you both could probably comment on is, can you please cite an example of a trendy meal that kids actually eat, that kids actually eat that are actually healthy and nutritious? And I think you both gave some great examples. So if either one of you would like to comment on that.
I think our example of the bulgogi bowl was really a heavy hitter right there. I mean, it was healthy. Kids could add their own fruits and vegetables. They were quick pickled or just, you know, like carrots that were just shredded. The rice was brown rice, and you can use a variety of different kinds of meat. We happen to use USDA pork, which is very lean, but you can use beef or chicken as well. And I think it met all the guidelines. I mean, it was a higher sodium meal, but it still met the guidelines because it was basically a meal in and of itself. We met all the meal components with that meal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of the trends right now, fortunately, are lending themselves to be healthier and more nutritious than perhaps some in the past. You know, it's not the burger that has a bunch of bacon on it and we're going to load it with a bunch of cheese. You know, this bowl concept, I mean, the Indonesian fried rice, you know, which is extremely delicious and well received. And it's incorporating a lot of different vegetables, and there's also pineapple in it. So I think that, you know, the desire for the unique handhelds, like when you saw the gobbler, you know, students may not, you know, gravitate towards, you know, some of the components on their own, but the fact that it's all together in that sandwich, you know, then they're eating, you know, those vegetables that are in the stuffing without even really thinking about it. And the more you show that, then the more likely they are to pick it up as a side.
Yeah, great points there. And as if we know anything about Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they like customization, they like portability, they like, you know, all of those examples that you gave. So the bowls and the handhelds, I think, are perfect for those customers. Kind of in a related note, one question here: when you get so detailed with things like foreign foods, do you have problems crediting food items? Yeah.
You know, the cornbread drop biscuit, you know, we developed that to be a 2 bread grain. The fact that, you know, we control the sodium and we can control the sugar actually made it really nice. Even when it comes to, you know, the different bowls or a unique handheld, some of it's going to be the way you want it to credit. If you're trying to reach, you know, having a fruit crediting in there, vegetable crediting in there. If you're just looking for the 2 meat alternate, 2 bread grain, which is typically what I do, and then those additions of, you know, fruits and veggies, that's just added bonus and flavor.
I think when you're doing scratch cooking or you're attempting to scratch cook and recreate some more globally appropriate meals, I think you can, you know, just use the school nutrition guidelines and incorporate whole grains, even if it may not be whole grain, as it's enjoyed, you know, in that cuisine, and really just try to lower the sodium by the ingredients that you put into it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. When I was in a school district prior to this position and doing recipe development and writing menus, it is not difficult to credit some of these, you know, culturally relevant meals because we're working with, you know, just kind of the basics of the regulations, you know, the meal pattern for school nutrition programs. You know, especially in the case of a rice bowl where there might be a lean protein or a legume as the protein source, it's a great nutritious option that's you can go in a lot of different flavor directions. Here's another one. Let's actually do a quick time check. I think this may be our last one. I'll see if you have anything else that you wanted to address. Do you use street food for inspiration? Teens who go get their foods from like 7-Eleven, of course, or when they're out, maybe they come across a food cart or something. Can you give examples of how you might have incorporated some inspiration from those options?
I mean, we serve street tacos, and then again, I think like a grab and go charcuterie box is very relevant there of what kids might be grabbing at a quick serve restaurant or a quick serve like market or a bodega type of place.
Yeah. How about you,
Yeah,
Rachel?
I think, street food is really cool inspiration. And also, a lot of times they're roasting and grilling things. So I think that, that always sparks interest and inspiration. Yeah. I mean, look to everything, even part behind like the grapefruit brulee. One of the first things that came to my mind was, like retro fashion, and my kids are running around in vintage basketball high tops, and kids are wearing 90s vintage band t-shirts. And it really got you thinking, like, they want something that almost has that old school feel to it. But know that when you see something, you don't have to exactly translate it. You're going to take almost like that runway, whatever concept it is, and you're going to, make it ready for, Target, and we're going to bring it mainstream and give it your own spin. But yeah, you should be looking at food trucks and street food and all the above.
It's a good analogy using fashion. I think that's a good point, Rachel. So well done there. Both of you shared so much incredible information. There's too many key takeaways for me to actually summarize here, but Jeannie, I'm going to just take a quick step. Some key takeaways from you: look at food trends in the community, in publications, on social media, and overall, ask your customers. Above all, is what I meant to say. Ask your customers what they're interested in. And then Chef Rachel, some key takeaways from you is, again, students love the handhelds and bowls, and to also sometimes just wow them with something totally unexpected that they would think would never come from the school kitchen. It can be done. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Do either one of you have anything else that you wanted to make sure to add or address?
No, but I'd love to see how people are inspired. I'd love to see them post on their social channels or on tips or to really keep that conversation going.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to do a little bit of final housekeeping here. So thank you again. That'll conclude our Q&A, but I want to make sure that everybody's aware of our next webinar, which will be on Thursday, June 1st. We're going to do a replay. So please note that this is a replay of a webinar. It won't be live. There will be no live Q&A, but this was an awesome webinar called Culinary Quick Bites: Short Format Culinary Training for School Nutrition Professionals. So if you're around on June 1st, please register and attend that. It's a really terrific webinar. And of course, I wanted to make sure that you were aware of iLearn, which is the ICN's online learning platform. That is where you'll find CICN and STAR webinars archived, and a lot of other continuing education opportunities right there on iLearn. So finally, make sure that you're following us on social media so that you're aware of everything that we have going on and all of our webinars and trainings when we're out in the field. So please find us on all of these social media channels. And finally, I would like to thank Jeannie Riley and Chef Rachel Petralia for sharing their insight and expertise with us. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. This concludes today's webinar. Have a good day.